Hey you, it's True with a review of the new Siegfried. This name directly translates to victory peace in German, so let's see if she can bring those to the battlefield. Her speed is on the lower side with 407, and once she gets the first turn, it will be time for the Scale Breaker. +2 spirit, 60 time unit cost, 300% damage to one enemy. This attack ignores enemy damage reduction effects and any effects of non-boss enemies that would prevent the target from being defeated. And I can already tell you that all of her attacks actually do ignore survival skills, so all of her attacks are execute skills. But yeah, usually she will kick it off with this Scale Breaker that is rather mild with 300% damage. An added effect though is that it grants the sleep status effect for 100 time units to one other enemy per charge stored on the user, which will be only one charge at the start of the battle. And to be fair, normal sleep for 100 time units is rather short, but with 3 charges it can put 3 enemies to sleep potentially. And then we have her instant skill Icy Awakening +5 spirit. This one heals Siegfried fully. It grants her a charge, sleep ward, poison ward and the armor status effect. It also enrages her and she will endure the next damage that would defeat her. This is unlocked each time she defeats a non-conjured enemy on the battlefield with an attack, and then locked again after use. Non-conjured enemy is the key here. This means imposter or clone kills will not help Siegfried unlock this very powerful skill. Why is it so powerful? Not just because what's in that active skill, but also what is related to that charge mechanic, more on that on the passive side. But first, her third skill that actually costs 3 spirit and is called the Chilling Giza. 100 time unit base cost, 200% damage to 2 enemies, plus 200% for each time this unit has defeated an enemy with an attack while on the battlefield, up to a maximum of 800% total damage after defeating 3 enemies. Notably in this skill, again, it is any enemy that counts, so if she kills imposters, the damage scaling on this chilling skill will already be happening. Just as her first skill, this attack ignores enemy damage reduction effects and is an execute skill as well. On top of that, it also ignores skin passive skills and counter stance status effects. So once she gets kills, this will become a very powerful skill. Enraged at 1200% damage to 2 enemies. Armor ignoring executing. Not much that could stop that at this point. And then there's her final active skill called Snowstorm. 100 time unit cost, 0 spirit cost, and deals 500% damage to all enemies. 700% damage instead if Siegfried has survived for 100 time units on the battlefield. Again, this is an execute skill, but other than that it doesn't ignore anything else. So armor is not ignored, stealth is not ignored, counter stance is not ignored. What makes this work nevertheless is that all enemies hit are also granted Frostburn, meaning unless quickly purified they will not be able to do their next turn anyways. This skill is locked for 100 time units after Siegfried enters the battlefield, but it is also a bit of a vengeance skill because it can unlock prematurely if a non-conjured ally on the battlefield is defeated or sacrificed by any source. Granted, if she uses it prematurely, then the damage is only 500%, less likely to get a kill from that, especially not ignoring armor, but the Frostburn then might enable your team to turn things around. Quick reminder, since Frostburn was just introduced with Anastasia, when a unit has Frostburn and they get the turn, they will lose the turn as if they were sleeping, and then Frostburn is removed and that unit is granted the burn status effect. While Frostburn is not a status effect, it can still be purified. Moving on to her passives, the first one is called Dragon Slayer. All of her attacks will not wake sleeping enemies, and she has lifesteal, so heals for 100% of total damage dealt. She is also immovable, something very important at this point in the meta, and until she defeats a non-conjured enemy with an attack while on the battlefield, so until she unlocks the Icy Awakening active skill, she is permanently immune to sleep status effects, to poison status effects, and has 50% damage reduction from attacks. So this is a bit of a hunter's armor and immunities. Now at this point you might start to think about another prior top meta unit. And yes, Siegfried is a bit of an icy Kochiro, but on the topic of armor, Kochiro's armor downscaling with kills was much more forgiving. Now, even though I just called her an icy Kochiro, this unit is actually having a permanent burn status effect, or rather she permanently counts as having the burn status effect. She cannot gain the burn status effect, similar to what we saw in Apollo and Artemis a long time ago when they tried to make burn and stealth together work. Now, while any non-sleeping unit that is dealt damage by Siegfried will become burned, attacking Siegfried will not cause units to become burned. The next passive is Returning Legend. As mentioned before, Siegfried enters battle with 1 charge. She also gets 10% HP regen for 200 time units and will endure the first damage that would defeat her with 1 HP. 10% HP regen basically means 10% health healing after every turn that any unit takes on the battlefield. Siegfried cannot be stunned if there is a unit on the battlefield that is fire element or has a burn blast or burn drive type active skill. That is any unit on the battlefield, so either ally or enemy. She herself doesn't have a burn blast or burn drive active skill and is obviously of the water element, so she definitely relies on one of the other 7 units in that regard. Now, another callback to Kochiro, this unit's active skills all cost 25% less time units for each charge it has stored, up to 75% less max with 3 charges. Now, unlike Kochiro, she already starts with the 25% less time units, and she only gains the charges when she uses the Icy Awakening skill, which in turn only unlocks if she defeats unconjured enemies. So even if she defeats more than 1 unconjured enemy at once, the Icy Awakening will only grant her 1 additional charge, so getting to the 75% time unit reduction is not as straightforward and not as passively happening as it was with Kochiro. And then we get another nice callback to another top meta unit that is much older, that was Earth Kaguya, the very first variant. At the end of each enemy turn, if no enemies had Frostburn at the start of the turn, a random non-sleeping enemy is granted Frostburn. Now, this only has a base chance of 20%, but if you fully awaken Siegfried, this chance is 100%, unless Siegfried has no other allies on the battlefield left, but this does not specify that the enemy has to have more than 1 enemy left, so even if there's just 1 enemy left standing, it will get Frostburned after each of the turn it gets to actively take. All in all, Siegfried will hope to get a kill already with Scalebreaker, but then hoping to at least get an unconjured kill with the Snowstorm at the latest, subsequently using an Icy Awakening, and at that point the Chilling Giza double execute skill will already be a good pick, given that it will deal 600% to 2 enemies thanks to the enrage of Icy Awakening. Now, her AI hate level is very interesting. When she starts at the battlefield, her hate will be extremely low, unusually low, as long as she didn't kill any units. But then when she gets the first skill, it doubles and normalizes basically to a normal threat level. But then as soon as she uses the Icy Awakening for the very first time, she will get focused a lot. She will be the center of attention for the enemies to take her out, which gets exacerbated even more if she actually manages to get to 3 charges, so uses the Icy Awakening twice. At that point there will rarely be another unit on her team that enemies would target over her. And yeah, moving to the analysis section, this is slightly concerning for her, given that her Hunter's passive also falls away as soon as she gets the first skill. So she will no longer have the permanent 50% damage reduction. Yes, she will get the armor status effect from the Icy Awakening, but that is only one-time use. She will no longer be permanently poison and sleep immune. Yes, she will have the wards, but also no longer permanent. And in her whole skill set, there's only an endure effect. Anyways, then again, this is not even that much of a problem, considering that, as we see in her own skill set, at this point in the meta we get more execute skills than normal attack skills anyways. Now, another concern for her though is that she also has no way to get turns within her own skill set, Now granted, once she gets charged, her time unit costs become very low and she will very regularly get turns anyways. Plus, if there is a burn unit around, she will be stun immune. There's also more and more passive give turns on recent units. Think Modern Elmina, Don Quixote or Light Bahamut. But still, if she is not run with or against burn, that means she is very vulnerable to stun. This again is balanced out a little bit by her also having an effect, a passive effect of granting frostburns to enemies. But this is also a bit random, so can be very powerful if it repeatedly hits those enemies that are about to get the next turn, but could also land on an enemy that is far from it. But yeah, aside from that passive, her initial start is a bit underwhelming. There's basically just the scale breaker. She will get the turn pretty late. Maybe she's already frostburned herself at that point in time, which to be fair is okay given that her action will usually start with the snowstorm, which is a very, very powerful skill. A bit of a shame that it is only usable once per battle, but other than that, it's good. I mean, thinking about it some more, what would have probably helped her is if that snowstorm skill only locks as soon as she gets the first unconjured kill, so as soon as she uses the Icy Awakening, because then she can switch to the Chilling Geyser anyways. But if the snowstorm doesn't succeed in getting any kills, then she will really have to hope to get lucky at some point with the scale breaker. But yeah, she might have a lot of time for that anyways, because her hate will be so low unless she gets kills. The only problem is as soon as she gets a conjured enemy killed, her hate will also normalize already. But yeah, I think the passive Frostburn giving cannot be underestimated. But what about team recommendations? She is a water sleep unit after all, but the focus is clearly Frostburn, and the focus, given her passive specification of being stun immune together with burn units, means that in my opinion she is most suitable for burn. It also helps that together with Don Quixote and Bahamut she will have some very potent potential to get additional turns, which may help her to get more active skills out to increase her chances to actually get kills. Now water sleep is also interesting, though I think not as potent. So for those water teams, Anastasia is probably still the better Frostburn pick. In terms of running with Anastasia in general, I don't think it's actually necessary to run these two together, even though both are the first Frostburn type units. Siegfried's passive Frostburn only triggers if there is no enemy that has Frostburn already, so it might be more interesting to run her with at least one burn unit rather than Anastasia. Now that might also give rise to certain burn hybrid combinations. What I can't really recommend Siegfried for is any kind of cursed sleep teams, any kind of poison teams. With stun teams there is some potential, but overall the best match seems to be burn teams. Once she gets to 3 charges, she is probably the most powerful steamroller in the entire game. Yes, it's not an attack all execute skill that she will use then, but 25 time unit cost for the Chilling Geyser, dealing 800 to 1200% damage to 2 enemies, armor ignoring executing, giving her yet another Icy Awakening, which is an instant skill, so the Chilling Geyser will come right after straight away, giving her always enough spirit to do that as long as she keeps killing unconjured enemies. And even if not, if she has 3 charges, the Scale Breaker also becomes rather good, considering that it spreads sleep to 3 enemies. But what you have to keep in mind during all that is that her survivability will be in question at this point. Gonna be very tough to keep her alive then, considering the high hate and the removal of many of her survival features. All in all, if your team is already very strong in a fight or in a battle, then Siegfried will exacerbate that, making your team even more steamrolly. But if she doesn't find a good start and your team gets clapped, you can't really rely on Siegfried to turn things around. Mostly I think because of that limited snowstorm use. The Frostburn spreading on that is extremely powerful, don't get me wrong, but if she fails to ensure a kill against an unconjured enemy with it, then things get really tough. So my final recommendation, wait for Lucky Fountain and then you can consider fully awakening her if you run a burn or sleep team. Burn because of the stun immunity and the afterglow of the Frostburn, sleep, well more specifically water sleep, because of her sleep skills, and her Frostburn passive being particularly nice when most of the enemies are asleep. Now for a 1 copy pull, I don't like her at all. Without the stats and the passive scaling, she is really not a good unit. So only pull if you can afford to fully awaken her and if you feel she can strongly help your team build. Hope you enjoyed this review and the battle footage. Apologies for the slight delay and my hoarse voice, both of which are definitely related. Don't forget to like and subscribe to become a true carrot, and as always, thanks for watching.